Thank you for joining this webinar, Education, Skills and Entrepreneurial Support, which I hope you'll find very useful and a timely session as we start to slowly come out of lockdown and ease into this new normal. I'm John Quinton Barber, founder of Social, a communications agency based in Manchester, and I'll be facilitating today's webinar, which is being hosted by The Growth Company. I'm delighted to be joined by Nikki Burley, Director of Human Resources Consulting, Cornerstone Resources Limited, Kathy Broderick, who's Operations Director with Industrial Sector Growth Company Education and Skills, and Dawn Duggan, People Skills and Talent Lead, Business Growth Hub. Over the next hour, we're going to be focusing on the effect of COVID-19 on workforce development. And in particular, we're going to be looking at new challenges and opportunities that the current pandemic has created relating to attracting, retaining and developing talent. But before I begin, I always do this. I want to add a personal note. I too am a business owner with 40 colleagues to look after, and I know how tough it's been and how tough it is right now. And I've got a huge amount of empathy for everybody who's on this call. So back to today. Get your questions in. There's a panel you can get your questions in, and we'll ask as many as we can. And please do get engaged with today's webinar because it is for people like you and I. So without further ado, good afternoon, Nikki. Good afternoon, Kathy. And good afternoon, Dawn. It's great to have you here with us. And Nikki, I'm going to come to you first, just to give a little bit of background about who you are, what you do, and a bit about your perspective about where we are in this COVID story.
Yeah. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Nikki Burley from Cornerstone. We run, and that's my husband and I, run a HR consultancy, and we're based out of south of Manchester. We've been running now for about 2.5 years, our own small business, and we both have over 20 years experience in corporate and small businesses in HR. So quite a wide amount of experience. This has been a hugely challenging time. I'm speaking to you now from my dining room table. We have 2 children who are currently on half term upstairs. And obviously we're small business owners as well. So we've been supporting a lot of small business owners, trying to help them navigate through this really challenging time. So we empathise completely where you're at. There is a way through, and we will get through it together.
Thank you, Nick. And I'm sure we're going to come back to you, obviously, talking about the early days in COVID and how it's changed and how it's pivoted and what's moving forward. So thank you for that. Kathy, good afternoon, Kathy. Just a bit about yourself and again, your perspective on where we currently are in this COVID story.
Okay, so my name is Kathy Broderick. I'm the Operations Director at GC Education and Skills. We're one of the largest providers of work-based learning for young people and adults, and we offer a broad range of apprenticeships, traineeships, study programme courses and adult courses, and also in-company upskilling and training and degrees, which I think will be quite relevant during this time. We have a footprint across GM Northwest and also some national delivery. We also deliver the European Social Fund's Skills Support for Growth programme, which is supporting those young people who are at NEET, so not in education, employment or training, or at risk of becoming NEET, and also the ESF Skills Support for the Workforce programme, which is the employer-led upskilling programme, again, very relevant for current times. Yeah. We have a broad service offering, as mentioned, kind of supporting young people and adults who find themselves unemployed or need to upskill and train to secure new employment. I'm sure we'll touch base on that again shortly, because I think we're seeing quite a significant upturn of interest in that area as well. All of our services are designed for for people aged from 15 with no upper age limits, and designed with progression in mind, that whether that's progression into employment, or also then once you're in employment, progression through employment through acquiring new skills. We cover a really broad range of sectors. I won't go through all of them, but pretty much everything from manufacturing, engineering, construction, the health and social care sector, education, automotive, and the financial services sector. And we've seen very interesting responses from those sectors, highs and lows, I think it's fair to say, for each of the sectors. And also we support those business with their professional service offerings. So the back house, management, IT, business admin, customer service, project management, HR, and so on. So in terms of kind of the feel initially, I think it's fair to say that we have just been so impressed with the response of our colleagues, but also our learners and employers during this time. I think, just taking the some of the points you were making earlier, that I think we've really entered this with quite a spirit of that we are all in this together. We will come through this. There are lots of challenging things that, present each day. But I think, we have got such a core about ourselves, that the values that we have as an organisation, working stronger together, doing the right thing, whether that's for ourselves, for our staff, for our learners, for our employers, I think is really what's holding us together during this time. But I have 2 young children. One should have been doing the GCSEs this year. The other one's in year 9. One's elated because he doesn't have to do his GCSEs. But it's interesting, just managing work, speaking to people through this medium now throughout all of the meetings. And again, I'm sure we'll come through. We had adopted lots of agile working methods, which I think have really supported us in our transition as a business, but also lots of blended learning for our apprentices and learners, but also for the employers to support them during this time. But I think it's fair to say lots of challenges, lots of opportunities as well are coming through this, but just making sure that we are considerate of individuals, wherever they happen to be, because there are just other considerations now, I think, as a business that we need to consider, but also for our clients as well.
Thank you, Kathy. And I think, young people's hugely important. And, there's a lot of narrative at the moment about the left behind generation. So we'll come back to that. And I'm really keen actually to hear about the opportunities that you talk about there. So I'll be quizzing you on that later. And last but not least is Dawn. Dawn, just and again, just, your take on this COVID story, where we're at, and some perspectives.
Definitely. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Dawn Duggan. I'm People Skills and Talent Lead at GC Business Growth Hub. So I'm responsible for managing any of the leadership and the workforce development programs that we run there, and also a national mentoring program, which helps business leaders work with global leading mentors to help them through this process and to develop their skills. We've been working since COVID struck and lockdown started with lots of different businesses across all different sectors, and everybody is having similar challenges, but they're also then having very independent challenges that are just unique to them and their business, things that they've never come across before. They're having to work differently, having to adapt to different styles of working, having to look at different ways of keeping their teams motivated and engaged when they're used to being in the same place. So we're hearing lots of different unique stories coming through. We're hearing about businesses that have completely and utterly diversified and gone into different ways of working. We're hearing some amazing positive stories coming out from businesses across Greater Manchester. And also we are also hearing on the other side of it, the challenges that some are facing, looking at, having to look at redundancies, having to look at furloughing their staff, having to look at the culture within an organisation and how they can change that. So a lot of businesses have been through a big period of change over the last 8, 9, 10 weeks. And quite a lot of them are now looking forward to the future and about bringing their workforces back if they haven't already started to do so. And the changes that they're then going to have to make and what support they're going to need, not just from ourselves at the Business Growth Hub, but from other organisations across the areas and the regions that they work in. So it's a challenging time. Some really good positive stories coming out, but also, some businesses that have struggled through this time and are having to look at different ways. So it's going to be interesting moving forward into this next phase of recovery to see, what comes out of it. And I think we're going to see a lot of positive news that come out. On a personal note, and my partner has a small business. So obviously, from that side, we've had the challenges, from that side, very similar to Kathy. His daughter should have been taking GCSEs this year. So I was a bit upset in terms of, yes, and to start with not taking them, but then she's quite happy that she doesn't have to now. So, so from a personal side, I see it from both, from being part of a small business, but also, from working with businesses as well.
Thank you, Dawn. And one of the things I'm probably going to come back to you on is about this whole thing about skills. Skills is so important right now, but it might not be the forefront of people's minds as they're trying to pivot and get back into the world of work. But I think, you're absolutely right to talk about that and focus around that. And some of the kind of what we'll be asking you later on is some of the positive stories that you're hearing, so things that, you can share best practice from. But Bernard, thank you very much for your question. We've got some questions coming in, and one from Bernard. I'm going to ask everybody, going to you first, Nikki. But the question is, what are companies doing to help their staff whilst they're on furlough and to get them prepared to return to work in a changed world? Are there any examples of proactive companies in Greater Manchester? That's a cracking question, Bernard, and one that is probably being asked daily. So, panel, to you, Nikki, first, what are companies doing to help their staff whilst they're on furlough? And I think then to get them prepared back to work in a changed world. Any ideas? Anything you're picking?
A couple of great examples I've been hearing of it. The main thing is really communication. Get the people furlough. Some companies are doing weekly calls. It really depends, obviously, on the number of people that you have on furlough. Some are doing weekly calls and check-ins with them, and really just simply helping them put a structure around their day. Sometimes you need that when you've gone from a very busy job to then being at home 24/7. You may have different responsibilities at home too. Some have been doing special webinars for furloughed staff, and that is around helping them manage their mental health. Managing different responsibilities that they've got going on right now, and some just really interesting. There's a lot of free training out there at the moment, so we've been encouraging some of the businesses that we work with to share some of the free government and growth hub training, skills training courses that are out there for that people to then improve their own personal development while they've got this time away from the workplace. Some are now starting to shift to thinking about what does that return look like. Some of it may start with a bit of an update of what's been going on for the business while people have been on furlough, and what they are doing as a business to secure people's health and safety and a safe return to the workplace. Just keeping in communication with people, really.
That's interesting. Are there any themes, because obviously you're working with a number of businesses, are there any themes? I mean, just returning back to work, back into the office, for example, is that's emerging that, you can share with us that are kind of common questions from business owners, anything that's front of your mind?
Yeah, I've seen a number of different, especially from an office perspective. Some businesses have decided to actually not return right now, so to stay home and remote working until September or the end of the year. They just, I think, looked at some of the guidance and given their office environment, felt it was too complex to work that through. And they were doing regular surveys and check-ins with their people, and they came back and said, that works for us to stay where we are right now. So that's how they took that decision. Whereas some are actually working through detailed risk assessments right now to see how that's going to work for their return to the office environment. So I've seen a mixed response, but I think where it's worked really well is where they've got feedback from their employees around what they also want to do and how they're comfortable they are.
So I think a key message from Nikki there obviously is about communication, something which is extremely important in times like this. And it's just, I don't believe you can't over communicate in these instances. So I think, it's keeping that ahead of you. I'm going to come over to yourself, Kathy, about this question. If you've picked up anything about what a company's doing to help staff whilst on furlough, but also coming back in.
Yeah, cool. So perhaps to start off with what we're doing within education and skills, and it's part of the growth companies, it could be some similar things to Dawn, but it's communication. We have a range of communication processes in place, and that starts MD level down to managers are then cascading that to teams. And we've also, if we have got staff on furlough, we've kind of set up a network of who takes that responsibility to keep in touch with those individuals and furloughs, and that's weekly or bi-weekly. Bi-weekly is a maximum, but some have asked for weekly updates. And then within the teams, they've got a range of online quizzes that are taking place. They've got coffee mornings, virtual coffee mornings that they're doing, evening pub quizzes that they're involved in. We have also issued a lot of guidance and information around, supporting them whilst they care for the situation that they're in, because they could be caring for young people, they could be caring for individuals that have support needs themselves, or adults, what concerns that they may have, caring for themselves also, because there's lots of, mental health concerns at the moment as well, that, some individuals can be living at home actually whilst they're on furlough and they're isolating, and it's what network can be created for them We also have an employer assistance program that the growth company have signed up to, and that offers a range of support. So we are emailing, a lot of information out. And then I think, as you were mentioning there, Nikki, there's lots of online learning resource available for people as well, and brilliant webinars around, just things that individuals might be encountering themselves. We've also just launched a survey for our staff as well, just asking a range of questions so that we can better target as well any trend information that's coming out, so we can then align support to them. We've also been conducting a range of risk assessments across our sites and businesses, and sharing that with people. And as part of that communication is really talking about how things will be different whenever we do come back, and to whatever comeback looks like. So like yourself, we have said that whenever we decide to make that move, and we've got plans to do so, where you can work from home, the expectation is that you will continue to do that for the time being. But at least we're preparing people for what it would look like. And then I think when people do come back virtually or in the office, it's communication. It's about briefings. It's about making sure that people feel comfortable, in touch, up to date, giving them that time to be able to do that before business as the new normal kicks back in. What we're finding with some of our clients is that they, again, generally, they've actually been really supportive of those staff that are on furlough. Whilst on furlough, you can take training and development, for example. And so we have apprentices on furlough. Most employers, not all for various reasons, or because of perhaps the learning program that they're on, have enabled their staff to continue with their learning. And I think that's really enriching. We're seeing fantastic commitment from the apprentices particularly, that want to continue to engage, want to be stimulated, and also don't want to become behind in their learning program, because they recognise when they're back, they want to be useful, they want to still be able to contribute to the business. And we've also got employers that had plans to start new members of staff, and they've continued with that. So they've and put them onto a learning program. So things like the Skills Support for the Workforce program can be used while people are on furlough as to kind of apprentices. And I think it's being mindful of, the individual's well-being, but also the business. When we come out, when we all come out of this, they will still need to have staff that are productive and that are flexible, more adaptable than ever, and to be able to offer that contribution back. I'm
going to come back onto that, Kathy. So I'm going to stop you there, because I think there's been a lot. But I'm going to come back to all of you about this. There's going to be a bit of crystal ball gazing here, I'm afraid, about what we think the next 6 months is going to hold for the workplace and skills and development and prioritisation. But I'm going to come to you, Dawn, in a second. Just for everybody on the call, there's going to be links to a lot of the of what Kathy's just been talking about there. There'll be some website links which will show up right at the end, which will guide you to various sources of information. But Dawn, just get your perspective on that question about furloughing and anything else to add.
Very similar to what Kathy's just said, that it is about communication, and it is about making sure that your employees feel connected still whilst they're on furlough. It's about making sure that they don't feel forgotten about, and that when they come back into the workplace, that they've not missed anything in terms of, if they've still been liaising with colleagues that haven't been furloughed, making sure that they don't feel left out. It's about talking to them. Very similar there. It's about making they've got any concerns that they're listened to. And it is an ideal opportunity for them to be trained up in a particular area, or to get refresher in other areas as well. Some of them might have been going for looking for internal promotions or career changes within that company. So this is, an ideal time for them to meet up or talk with other colleagues and share some learning experiences and best practice that way. There are a lot of programs, we've mentioned the Skills Support for the Workforce program. We have various other workforce development programs running through the Business Growth Hub. So we've got various webinars that are being run at the moment called Strive and Thrive, and they're on various topics. So they can, look at finance, they can look at marketing and sales and strategy. There's a leadership one on there. There's one on about supply chain. So employees can look into different areas whilst they're on furlough and gain from all this experience. And then we also have another funded project, which is about a skills brokerage project and stimulating employer demand for apprenticeships. And what this service does, the CEDAR project, is help employers prepare a workforce development plan. So, and they can use this service now to look at what employees they've got, what skills they had previously, what are they going to need when they come back into the workforce. And they can have an advisor who will help support them to create that plan in advance or in currently. And that will then help them identify the training needs that they might have had previously, but definitely the new training needs that they've got now as they come back into a different workplace. And then the advisor will help them put that plan together and help them, identify the various training providers out there across the region that can then help them, and support them through that, whether it be through funded packages or partially funded packages, or whether it's commercial training. So that service is there for employers to access at the moment.
That's fantastic, Dawn. I mean, and again, I'm learning a lot of new things here, which is always a benefit of doing this. So how can you access that, Dawn? I'm going to come back to you straight away, but how can somebody access that workplace development plan? How long does it take? What kind of investment is not monetary or time from a business owner's point of view? Why should we get involved?
Yes, there's no financial monetary contribution for it. It is a fully funded programme that is funded through the Greater Manchester Combined Authority. Again, I'll share the links with you afterwards so that you can send that out to anybody on here. And it's a very straightforward process. It would be making contact and then in giving your company contact details and names, etc. And then an advisor would call you direct, and they can do that virtually. They can use either Zoom or Power Now or Skype for Business, Teams, whichever software, or they can do it over the phone if you don't want to do it, like on a virtual software. And the process is about an hour and a half to 2 hours, that initial conversation. And then dependent on, obviously, on the size of the business, how many employees you got and how complex your business is, it would then go from there. And then you would get the plan in due course. But it obviously all depends on each business's individual needs. But it would literally, you'd get a call within 24 to 48 hours, to start that process once you'd registered your interest.
Thank you, Dawn. I'm going to ask a question now of Nikki and of Kathy, and I'm going to be a little bit provocative. Just about why, because we are in this torrid period of the COVID-19. We're pivoting all the time as business owners, and this is not a loaded question, but why should tell us why we should be really focusing on training and development? And Kathy, when I come to you about young people as well, I'm really keen to kind of get that from you about the danger of the younger generation being forgotten out of this, and absolutely that should not be happening. So give us some ideas about how we can make sure that happens, how we publicise it, and why we should be focused. But Nikki, coming to you, why should we really be bothering with training and development? We've got a whole host of things to think about when we get back to office.
I think I've been looking at the kind of skills that actually we'll need going forward, because the workplace is going to look quite different. People have had to move quite quickly. In some businesses, people are used to working from home and remote working, and some aren't. So I've been looking at the kind of training that's available to help people, work better on a longer term remote working. There's a lot of training and development around there to help them, with their organizational skills, with their resilience, with their self-sufficiency, how they communicate. And also their confidence in speaking, because it's quite different, again, trying to speak up in a meeting when you're in a face-to-face environment versus trying to shout up on a Zoom call when there's 10 or 15 people on there. It's quite different. So I've seen really the value in some of those courses that are around to help people increase their own personal skills, to help them to be a more confident employee. And also to help them with their own productivity as well, their own time management skills and things like that too. So there's a lot of benefit and advantages. And also both the ladies have referenced how much free training and development is out there. So for me, whether you do it in small bite-sized chunks or in your own time, it's a bit of a no-brainer in terms of doing it. Because you're investing in yourself as, personally, but also you're bringing greater value to your employer.
Brilliant. I think, it's about having that front of mind, isn't it? And obviously, the areas that you work in, it's very much front of your mind. It's about how we can get that in the front of my mind and every other employer out there that's going to be going through a whole host of turmoil and looking at how we can get back into the workplace. But I'm massively with you. It's hugely important. And speaking of what's hugely important is young people. And Kathy, I just want your perspective really on, talk to us about we shouldn't, generally should not be forgetting young people in all of this, and how we can support young people and getting them into the workplace. And do, before I let you answer, there's a whole thing about build back better, which is GMCA's new campaign. And, at the forefront of that in my mind should be about young people. So, give us your thoughts.
I think investing in people, investing in young people, it's key. We know that businesses that do invest in people and young people thrive, and it's all about diversity as well, isn't it? So that those organisations that do have diverse workforces are more adaptable, the more engaged they will be able to relate to their clients much more significantly if they're able to show that diversity. Young people also are so versatile. They, often, not to generalize, but, often it's, the older generations that can be more rigid. And, particularly as we go through all the changes that we're going through now, I am so impressed with how the young people that are our apprentices, but also the young people of my children, how they are managing this particular phase. They have adopted, and because of, socially, they're much more used to this online learning. They've adopted to this world so well. But I think what we need to do, it is very much about us taking ownership of young people. I know there are lots of priorities, and more priorities will come out of where we are, but you must think about succession planning. You must think about the future strength of your organisation. I genuinely believe that we do have a responsibility to make sure that the young people in our society are given those opportunities, because they will be taken over from us all at some point in the future. And, just go ahead.
Sorry, Kathy, I'm interrupting there. Sorry, I just wanted to kind of get the flavour of apprenticeship. So in all of the chaos that's been for the last 12 or 13 weeks, apprenticeships are still really important. There's opportunities to go and work with, bringing apprentices to businesses. That the message is still there to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the apprenticeships have also responded in terms of the delivery structures, responded to what's going on. But we are finding that, understandably, some employers are just pausing for a little while. But we've also got a significant number of employers that are continuing to commit to their recruitment plans because they need that resource within the organisation, and they are committing to the learning programmes for the young people. So, there's the apprenticeship levy that's still available to employers. There's also opportunities for those employers, should they need to make a contribution towards their apprenticeship. There are large employer levy paying firms that are willing to support those firms and make those payments for them, and we can provide further information available. But when you look at the content of apprenticeship programs and the levels that the apprenticeship programs go to now, that there is something for young people and bringing new people into the organisation, but also your workforces. Don't forget your own workforce at this time, because quite likely, as we move forward, we will find that individuals could be flexing in their roles and taking on new responsibilities in response to what's going on. Well, there are brilliant training programs and apprenticeship training programs there available, funded to help the individual, but also the business, to make sure that they do get a good grounding and knowledge, and that they know that they're competent at the end of the apprenticeship program as well. Young people throughout all of this do still desperately need work experience opportunities. And, work experience currently in the main is virtual. There are other opportunities where they can, but we do need employers to still consider offering those opportunities and taking, people under their wing and supporting them. And I think it's not forgetting also that we all had that benefit at some point in our development and in our career. And I think we have it in all of us to make sure that we do look to the young people and make sure that we do provide that support, to them over the coming months.
Thank you, Kathy. Dawn, I'm going to come to you in a very short second about mentoring and, not the other end of the spectrum, but also older people, mentoring business owners, what you're doing there. But for everyone on the call, thank you so much for still being with us and joining us and enjoying the conversation. Please do ask your questions. There's a panel. I will make sure your question gets asked. And so by the way, Dawn, talk about mentors.
So mentoring is fantastic. But at this current time, it is crucial, and it can have such an impact on a business owner, a business leader, or a key decision maker within a business. We run the Be the Business National Mentoring for Growth program, and this is where we match SME leaders with a mentor from some of the leading firms, global leading firms. So we have mentors coming from Amazon, GlaxoSmithKline, BAE Systems, Cisco. I'm just trying to think, McKinsey's, KPMG. We've got a whole raft of mentors from all different departments, all different levels, and they're all senior levels and above. And we match the mentor with their skill set to a mentee's needs. And we're running a program at the moment, which is called Rapid Response Mentoring Cohort. The normal Be the Business Mentoring Program, it's completely fully funded. There's no cost to the SME leader, and the mentors are all provided and their expenses, covered by their host company. That program is normally a 12-month program where they can work with a mentor on long-term challenges over a 12-month period. But in response to COVID-19, we introduced the rapid response, which was 12 weeks. So to help a business leader through this immediate short-term time, they can get matched to a mentor and have virtual sessions. The mentors are all over the country. And they can have virtual sessions to support them through the challenges. So it could be looking at skills and training and how do they reorganize their workforce, looking at restructures. It could be helping them look at the strategy for the business, diversification. It can be any challenge at all that particular business is facing at that moment. We will be able to match them to a mentor to short-term help them out. If they then decide at the end of that 12 weeks they want to carry on and be supported into a further 12-month program, we can facilitate that as well. But we're seeing, lots of businesses that are coming forward to take up that support, just because they've got that immediate need and having that contact. It's some small businesses don't have a board or people that they can talk to and to bounce their ideas off and have that sounding board. And especially through this challenging time where they're not sure if the business is even going to survive in some cases, having that person there once a week or twice a week that they can reach out to and, draw down from that breadth of knowledge and experience is hugely beneficial for business owners.
Does that cover all sectors? Thank you for your question, Sharon. Does that cover all sectors, the Rapid Response Programme?
It covers all sectors across England. So it's any business, any sector. There is 2 eligibility criteria to get on the programme, and there's a little bit of flexibility on that, but it's around about having at least 6 employees and having 1 million turnover to get onto that programme. And then for the 12-month programme, the eligibility is 1.5 million to 2 million plus, and with 8 to 10 employees as well.
I have to say, and I do say this, I do chair a few of these webinars are where you turn up in person, but not in person. I do chair a lot of these, and I say all the time, and I mean it genuinely from a business owner's point of view, the Growth Company and GMCA really give us a massive professional virtue hug, because, the stuff that, we have been in this March 17th, 18th, when it was lockdown, and it was like staring down the barrel of what the heck is coming our way. The pivoting that the Growth Company has done, and Business Growth Hub and GMCA, at the speed you've done it, that rapid response program in 12 weeks, getting access to mentors from them companies, I'm sure other city regions don't share that. So I just want to put that out there. I just want to say that it's a huge virtual hug.
It has. It's been a big challenge. We've managed to swap all of our programs from being face-to-face delivery to being virtual delivery to ensure that the support is still there and available for all SMEs. So it's been a very quick turnaround, but we've done it, and we're providing the support that's needed.
You are, and it happened in the first week. It felt for me what feels like 12 months ago now to everybody. I mean, COVID time is in years, not days, isn't it? But it felt like, the first week you were doing webinars about, trying to assess what's going on. And I think, don't underestimate what that means for those businesses. It's hugely important. I'm going to come on to you, Nikki, in a second, and I'm going to ask all panel members about a bit of crystal ball gazing, really, about in your various roles and what you're seeing about, there's a huge amount of narrative around the next 3 to 6 months, returning back into the city or whatever our locations are, being physically distanced from colleagues. So I wanted to kind of think what will be some of the challenges and opportunities when we eventually all of us get back into the new norm. So Nikki, straight to you.
Kind of things are top of our mind at the moment. We're waiting on the government announcement on what happens to furlough at the end of July. What does that mean for businesses? What are they going to be asking them to contribute? What does that mean for some being able to return part-time? So I think this is a really big piece in the jigsaw to help business owners to plan that return. And that advice is due from the 30th of May. So we're imminently, we're hoping for that. There's been a few reports in the press last week speculating on the percentages that may be asked. But there was also a really interesting survey out from the Institute of Directors this morning that shared about a quarter of business owners think that they actually can't contribute towards, they wouldn't be able to contribute. So, you know, that presents a problem in itself in terms of supporting business owners. But half of the survey respondents, as I think 700 responded, did say that they can contribute. So that's positive, and we can help them plan towards what that return looks like. I think one of the challenges, and obviously, you know, I'm a parent too, I've got a year 6 and a year 4 primary child, you know, that means very different things for both of them. One of them will return, likely to return till September. They'll
we might
parents that are out there for business owners, and how do we support, you know, how we think now, how are we going to support those working parents to juggle the responsibilities they're juggling whilst not being able to, you know, use their grandparents. Grandparents are a great source of childcare for us, and you know they are in that vulnerable category. So for me, that's really on my mind in terms of challenges for business owners, and you know it's an opportunity now to through, you know, what could we do as a company, what could we do as a business to support our working parents on the return? How flexible can we potentially be?
Thank you, Nikki. We lost your pitch there because I think we're all challenged by the one of the challenges we have in this new world is infrastructure. Obviously, yeah. We can still hear you, which is brilliant. Okay. So thank you. I'm going to come back to you at the end to kind of wrap up, and all the panel members at the end, just give kind of like your final thoughts. So I'll come to you soon. But Kathy, get your crystal ball out, gazing into it. What's the next 3 to 6 months looking like for where you sit and what your role?
Okay, so I think operationally as a business, we're experiencing the same things as everybody else. So if I perhaps focus on our crystal ball in terms of the services that we offer, perhaps for a second. Yeah. So we think everything that you've mentioned there, Nikki, we think that from a learning and development point of view, that there will still be some restrictions in place, you know, to enable us all to come back safely. So we've focused heavily on making sure that we have a blended learning approach still available to employers. So that means online learning, and where appropriate and where it's safe to do so, we then may still have opportunities to do some physical face-to-face training, but we're not clear when that will be just yet, although we have plans to start to open some of that as a phased return. So some of the delivery we do, for example, could be engineering and apprenticeship delivery, engineering construction delivery. And there's theory within that, which we can do remotely, and we can do online learning in classrooms. But there also comes a point in time when you actually need to use that machinery and that kit, and that physical interaction is required. So we have prepared for much smaller class sizes where relevant, but predominantly we're looking at virtual learning. And in the main, these are young adults that will be able to do that. Where we have vulnerable learners, and we have a different support mechanism in place for those individuals, and we respond to that based on a one-to-one basis. So if they do need face-to-face, more regular contact, we continue to offer that as a service. So we think from what we're hearing from our employers that, you know, they want to continue learning, they want their apprentices to continue, and they also need to continue to recruit new people. So we're offering that service for young people. So we feel, and kind of two levels really. We think potentially that there's going to be more adults that may find themselves unemployed over the coming months, in which case we need to make sure that our adult offer is robust and is then aligning itself to where we see the emerging opportunities, because there will be new jobs that come out of this. There's lots of work going on in the growth company where there's, you know, daily kind of data crunching and feedback from employers, where we are seeing surges of new employment opportunities, warehousing, retail, even in engineering and manufacturing, labouring, etc. So we're making sure that our offer is aligned to that. And for young people, you know, crystal ball, there are apprenticeship opportunities available, but we think that the normally a large intake of apprentices will be taken in most training providers in August, September and October. So that could be delayed, or it may be that it doesn't happen until next year now. So in which case, again, we have developed programs for those young people. So the kind of traditional courses that we do, 16 to 18-year-old learning programs, again, aligned to where we think those sectors will be. If it is that they're not able to get the apprenticeship, then we're going to give them the technical training to enable them to work with us to get them a job at the end of that program.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Kathy. That's really, really helpful. And again, Dawn, I'm going to come to you second with that crystal ball. Before I do, there's a question coming in from Bernard again about skills and work patterns, which I'll ask you, Nikki, in a second. But Dawn, just get your crystal ball gazing.
I think some people are going to expect to come back and for it to be exactly the same as it was before. And I think, that's not going to happen. So there's going to need to be a lot of changes, and businesses are going to need to really think differently about how they have staff, even just in their layouts. They're going to have to look at that. They're going to have to look at welfare facilities as well, in terms of lunch breaks and staggering lunch breaks to make sure that there's only so many people in a canteen or a kitchen area at any one time. Businesses are going to have to look at different working patterns and, maybe staggering, where you do a week at home, some are in the office, some aren't in the office, and you stagger, or even different work shifts, if you will, and make it so that, you start and finish early and then somebody comes in and starts later and finishing. So I think the world of working is going to be completely different to what everybody has ever experienced before. And I think businesses are going to need to take that time now to just sit back and not just rush back into going straight back into the workplace. I think that if somebody does that, it could be a very crucial mistake they make. They need to actually sit there and plan and actually, do a look at it holistically across all areas of the business and how they can make this work. We have businesses that are back in now, specifically like manufacturing and engineering companies, and they're asking, they need the advisors to be coming onto site with them and working with them, but from us as a company, we've got safeguarding to ensure that our staff are protected and safe whilst out there and working with other businesses. So it's about making sure that all the businesses have done the risk assessments. And it is about looking at how training can be done differently. How do these skills development needs that are identified, how can you work with your staff in a completely different way than you've ever done before? And looking at the different skills, every manager, and this relates to what Bernard's question is, every manager is going to need to manage their team differently. And this is going to be a challenge for them. So it's about not forgetting the managers and the leaders in there, and about what skills development they need in order to help the rest of the workplace with their own skills development. It's a totally different leadership style and way of working to manage a team remotely and to keep them engaged and to keep them motivated. When, like you say, they've got all these challenges at home, you're going to have the childcare issues. Some like this, some children are going back. You might have one child going back, one child not. How do you still homeschool? So businesses need to become more flexible than ever before and ensure that they take into account everybody's individual circumstances, not just as a collective, as a group.
Thank you, Diana. You mentioned the magic word there, flexible, and I'm going to come to you, Nikki, about that in a second, because I think that is the key to it, isn't it? And the one thing that we're all more mindful of now.
Definitely. I mean, the Growth Company, we went agile, as Kathy said, 12 months ago, well, over 12 months ago now, March last year. And we introduced a way of working between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. at night. And in light of COVID, the Growth Company has become completely flexible and agile, where, it's now become a 7-day working week, and you work your hours around your childcare. So they've adapted to COVID-19 in that way. And I think other employers are going to maybe possibly have to adapt similar styles to that in a way that works for their workforce.
Perfect. I mean, just from a personal point of view, when I started out working, I remember brushing my teeth and I was trying to work out whether I was going to bed or getting up, because I was doing the 13-hour days. It was the early 90s when it was about cuts on chairs and you've got to work 13, 14 hours to prove yourself. And actually, thank God, it's not like that anymore. So tell me, Nikki, please tell me that some of your clients are not Luddites and not still doing that, or the world is changing.
We work with a really wide range of clients, really wide range with very different cultures. So not our particular customers, but we do know there absolutely are businesses that before all this happened were more in the 90s in terms of, not very open to people working from home. And I think this is almost forced some of those companies to think, actually, I can start to trust my employees to do that. There are different ways to try and help, monitor and encourage and improve performance while people are working remotely. And I think Dawn touched on a number of really great points there around flexibility, but also helping managers to manage remotely. That's a very different skill set. Dawn was very, very clear on that as well. So I think to touch on Bernard's questions around the skills for managers, it would be for me around helping them to manage their team remotely. What skills that includes and how they can best do that. Thinking flexibly about maybe redesigning jobs. What it might have looked like before versus what the business might be offering when we go back might mean that there's some job redesign there too. Might need to come into it with a bit more of an open mind. Flexibility, as Dawn touched on, helping them to give their team members a voice as well through this, to make sure they keep touching base if they're working remotely for a longer period of time, making sure they're working, the health and safety aspect of it, that they're working safely from home. We've all just had to shift quite quickly to work, for example, me on the dining room table. That might have been fine for a short period of time, but if you envisage your employees working from home for any longer, then I think it's really important to work through the necessary there's loads of checklists and support out there to give you the best advice on your workplace, and how you're working from a laptop, etc. perspective. And also, I think we've heard some great examples recently with teams just actually creating a bit of a safe space for people to say, do you know what, I'm having a bit of a rough day. Just being really open. And sometimes we've found that where managers have just gone, yeah, I don't know what was wrong with me yesterday, but this is how I was feeling. That sort of opened up a bit of a conversation with the team to just say, yeah, I was like that last Tuesday. It sort of makes it just a little bit acceptable that's okay. And, we can support each other through today, and then let's move to tomorrow. So I think that's been really good, hearing some of those stories from some of our managers, that they've just been really open with their team on how they're doing on a particular day, and that's enabled everyone else to have a bit more of an open conversation with each other.
Thank you, Nikki. And I'm going to come to the other panel members in a second, but that is the crux of Build Back Better, isn't it? I think about the new norm for whatever challenge it's going to bring is surely going to bring some positives and people at the heart of that. So, Kathy, briefly, just give us your take on the flexible working side of it. You touched on before about young people being more agile with technology, but what's your further take on that? And before I do that, Sharon, thank you very much for your comment. Actually, when you said, Nikki, spot on, you've had a third generation manufacturer who never agreed to any kind of remote working, but now has offered it to their staff. And I think that's evidence. We'll see more evidence of that going forward. So there are positives to come out of this.
So I agree with everything that the panel have said, just in terms of their comments and thoughts, and just from just going back to the question for a second, it's very much about supporting managers to manage their staff's transition through managing change, because you can get your managers to a point, but then each individual will have their barriers and be anxious about managing change and their different home life setting. We found it's been very important to get into that detail, actually, to understand, and making sure that then you've got a flexible performance management system around all of that, so that you can be transparent with people and you understand the expectations of people, even in these settings, so that they feel that they are still achieving and making that contribution. With young people and the agile ways of working, fundamentally, I think, for any young person now starting work in this environment, assuming that there's a remote, it's very different for them, I think. And it's key that they do have mentors, that they do still have good induction programs and learning programs aligned to that, and that they have a network of people around them, which, can be done virtually. And, employers having virtual kind of chat rooms for young people to still touch base with. But, you know, just this week, we've had a young, one of our young learners who was on a study program course, doing a business administration study program course, and he still wants a job. And it's in a way, before they've even started work, or they might have just started apprentices, they're starting to think about there may not be any jobs actually available for them. There will be, but, you know, those are some of the anxious feelings that they have. So this young person was so proactive. I think he's 17 actually, so proactive, you know, continued to get the support from our staff, created CVs, continued to make applications, and he took part in a Zoom interview. And, you know, just a young person doing a Zoom interview, you know, you just think so many barriers that adults have actually about turning the video on as well. And he got the job, and he started working. So you just think, I think young people really will adapt to this, but it's just making sure they've got the support structure behind them, and that their key workers and tutors and teachers are themselves managing the change, if you will, and that they are encouraging them still to, you know, venture into the new world, but, you know, secure employment still.
Nice one, Kathy. And Dawn, I'll come to you in a second, and I will wrap up at the end with Nikki. I'm going to ask you the golden question, really about your, you know, what's your leave behind message from today. But Dawn, you manage a team which is nationwide, so I assume that flexible working is absolutely the heart of what you do.
Yes, I have a team of 13 that's spread across all of England, as well as a team of 19 that are within Greater Manchester. It's been flexible working since that team started in June last year. Managing a team remotely is the same region, but trying to manage a team nationally where you can't, you know, it's very rare that you actually manage to see them face to face. You know, we're lucky if once a quarter we can manage to get together all together. So it's vital that you have those open communication channels and that you keep them informed. So things that you might not necessarily share if you were going, you know, on a regular basis, because you'd keep it for a team meeting on a monthly. It's about making sure you share that as soon as it happens, so that they feel updated, they feel involved. It's about involving them at any time and taking on board their opinions on anything that you're doing, making them feel valued and respected, and that they're part of any process change that you do. It's also about making sure, from a well-being point of view, that they don't feel isolated, because that, especially, you know, now more than ever, we have staff members who live on their own, and obviously within lockdown might not have had any social contact, you know, as in terms of being able to speak to somebody just around the dinner table at night. So again, it's about making sure that you organise social lunches, then have Zoom over lunch. My team, we had a Zoom lunch where everybody made sandwiches and literally sat there and talked to each other, and making sure that it's not just work-related conversations that you have. But it's also about the managers that look after those staff, making sure that they understand that individual and that they adapt their leadership style to meet that individual style. You know, that's commonplace for a manager and a leader, but now more than ever, you know, working and managing remotely, that is crucial to make sure that you still get the best out of your staff, that they still feel supported, and that they feel involved in everything that you're doing. We offer lots of various leadership programs. We have a fully funded exec development program where we have, you know, 28 procured providers that are specialists in leadership development that can work with business leaders to help them through this change. And that, again, is all fully funded. You know, so that there's lots of different programs and support out there to help businesses through this challenging time.
Thank you, Dawn. That's really, really helpful. And we have only a few minutes left, so strictly 90 seconds to give me your leave behind from this session, which I hopefully will continue to enlighten the audience, and which has been a fantastic session, I have to say. Nikki, go for it. 90 seconds. I'm not putting the clock on, but
no pressure. Okay, so I guess what I've heard today is that there's lots of support and there's lots of advice out there. The Growth Company and various different companies around Greater Manchester are offering loads of fully funded advice and support, so you're not on your own as a business owner. There's also a lot of great practice going on out there. There's some great stories from other businesses, what they're doing, and we find that out a lot by coming to these kind of webinars, and also our different business networks that we're part of. So I'd really encourage business owners to try and join business networks and webinars like this, like the Thrive webinars that have been announced recently. And we're also part of the My GMCA, the new app that's been launched as well. So get yourself involved, because that way you'll get greater encouragement and support and hear about these great stories that will inspire you.
Thank you, Nikki. Kathy, 90 seconds.
90 seconds, okay. So I think the leave behind messages, during this time, do try and be creative. Do continue to invest in people and the business, and do invest in young people. Do continue to recruit young people, because it will make the organisations diverse, and don't forget to develop your staff. And just the growth company values, I think, really do come out strong here, actually, which is very much about empowering people, making a positive difference, building on success, doing the right thing, but kind of finally, stronger together, we will get through this.
Brilliant. Thank you, Kathy. And last but definitely not least is Dawn. 90 seconds.
90 seconds. So I think my message is positive. Stay positive throughout all of this. There is so many programs and people out there that can support business owners through this challenging time. You are definitely not on your own, and it's just about reaching out and seeing what's out there. Talk to your colleagues, talk to your friends, talk to your support networks that you've got around you. Make sure that you listen to the good news stories. There's a lot of negativity that you hear in the press going on at the moment, and I think there's far more positive stories if you just look for them. And I think we all need to stay positive. If you stay positive, you'll be positive for your team, and it's about supporting each other and reaching out to, as everybody said, through the Growth Company, through the Business Growth Hub, through the GMCA and all the different other regions and programs that are out there. There's support there for you, so please make use of it.
Thank you, Dawn. Finally, I've got 2 thank yous. I think time is always precious, so I want to thank the audience for tuning in. Your time has been well spent. I hope you found that. And again, thank you to the panel, to Kathy, to Nikki and Dawn for your time, for sharing what has been a really enlightening webinar with some really good insight and some good knowledge about how and when we return back to work, what are the key takeaways. As ever, the Growth Company has a wealth of knowledge and of documents on their websites. If you see the slide now, this is Growth Hub. You have a look at all of that. Do actually tune in and do access that. It's absolutely there for us all as business owners in Greater Manchester. So my final thanks goes to everyone for tuning in, for the panel. I hope you've enjoyed this, and see you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you
very much, everybody. All the best.
Bye.
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 Bye.